We plan everything for our kids, right? Their education, their careers, we've got spreadsheets for it all. But what about their personal lives? When it comes to things like marriage, so many of us just go silent. And then we act totally shocked when our kids choose a path we never saw coming. So today, we're going to dive into that really sensitive but absolutely necessary conversation.
And this really is the question at the heart of it all, isn't it? I mean, global exposure is changing everything. Social norms, what people expect from a relationship, even what commitment looks like. Our kids aren't trying to rebel, they're just responding to these brand new environments that we put them in. So what are we really preparing them for? Real life or just fitting in?
And this is where that big, abstract idea becomes a painful reality for someone. This quote comes from a father named Suresh. He felt, betrayed. He was so proud that he raised an independent, strong daughter, but then she made a huge life choice that went against everything he expected. His words just perfectly capture that powerful, confusing conflict that so many families are grappling with right now.
So let's talk about that unexpected choice. What does that really look like? It's that exact moment when the path we imagined for our children suddenly splits from the one they're actually walking. And that divergence, that disconnect, boy, can it feel incredibly personal. So here's the heart of Suresh's story. His 27-year-old daughter was basically caught between two different worlds. On one hand, she was raised with very traditional values. On the other, she was given a modern, global education. So what happened? She chose her own partner, someone completely outside the family's expectations of caste, region, and, the whole approval process. It's that classic clash of old and new, and it's all happening inside one family.
So to really get why this is happening, we've got to look at this generational divide. And I'll say it again, this isn't about rebellion. It's the totally predictable result of giving our children a worldview that's fundamentally different from the one we grew up with. Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay, think about it like this. You're kind of installing two different operating systems. On one side, you might have a more traditional upbringing, maybe like the CBSE model, which really emphasizes obedience, conformity, and getting the family's approval. But on the other side, you've got this global education, like an IB program, that champions individual choice, autonomy, and seeing all these diverse models for how to live your life. It's no wonder there's a system crash sometimes.
And look, neither path is perfect, not by a long shot. If you stick to tradition, but there's no open dialogue, that can lead to secrecy, guilt, and eventually broken trust. But the path of total freedom isn't a walk in the park either. Without some grounding, it can lead to emotional drift, kids delaying commitment, and a real sense of cultural confusion. The main point here is that kids on both of these paths need our guidance. And this brings us right to the parent's dilemma, this constant battle between fear and connection. It is completely, 100% understandable to feel afraid when you see these huge cultural shifts. I mean, it can feel like everything you've built, all the values you hold so dear, are suddenly about to crumble.
And these fears, they're very real and very specific, right? There's the fear that your cultural values are going to be watered down, the fear of what other people will say, that social judgment, the fear that the family unit itself could break down. And maybe underneath all of that is the fear of losing control over a life you so carefully tried to plan.
Okay, if you remember just one thing from all of this, please let it be this. Trying to control everything, trying to enforce your will in a world that's changing so fast, it almost always backfires. It doesn't preserve your values. The only thing that truly keeps culture and family bonds alive is a deep, honest, trusting connection.
All right, so if we all agree that connection is the answer, how in the world do we build it? Let's get practical. Here's a framework, some real actionable steps you can take to build that bridge across the generational divide.
The way forward really starts with talking about things, and talking about them early. It's about making relationships a normal topic, not some big, dramatic, sensationalized thing. It's about explaining the why behind your family values, not just demanding blind obedience. You've got to build that foundation of trust before a crisis hits. And then, as they become adults, this one's crucial. You have to respect their autonomy. Your job shifts from being an enforcer to being a guide. And your home has to be a safe space, a place where it's okay to have honest discussions and even make mistakes.
At the end of the day, the future of your family doesn't depend on how rigid you are. It depends on your ability to adapt. Thriving in this new world really means evolving your whole approach to what it even means to be a family.
And let this be your mantra. Strong families adapt, weak families enforce. Real strength isn't about laying down the law. It's about having the flexibility to listen, to understand, and to maintain that connection even when life doesn't go exactly according to your plan.
So we end right back where we started with a question for you.
You worked so hard to raise your children to think for themselves, to be critical thinkers, to be independent. The final, and maybe hardest, step is to trust that you did a good job. So now the question is, will you give them the space to live a thoughtful life that they can truly, honestly call their own?